My name is Adrian Feldhusen. I'm a New Hampshire certified midwife, CPM. I'm the owner here at the Birth Cottage in Milford and Salem. My degree and my background is in architecture and interior design, so this was not what I had set out for my life story. I got married when I was finishing my education. My first baby was born in a hospital, and I had a totally fine natural childbirth there. And I remember walking out the next day saying there has to be a better way to do this. I had done a lot of background work in childbirth education and empowerment, so the method I chose was dealing with patient choice, family choice, empowerment, and healthcare. And so having to advocate for myself in a very vulnerable time when I felt like I was in control. My father-in-law was on the board of directors at the hospital. I had to literally fend off the healthcare staff and the nursing staff and the people wanting to come in and separate me from my husband, even though he was my support system and my voice when I couldn't have a voice. So I started to teach childbirth education in the same method that I had taken. And one of the women in my childbirth ed class had a really, really hard, difficult home birth, very, very lengthy and problematic. And she was successful, but how she talked about how she felt empowered with her choices, how she felt supported, was very different than my own experience with my healthcare. And so I went and interviewed that midwife, and I offered to work with her for a little while. I offered to study with her, and I absolutely was in awe with, she was brilliant, and she was kind and loving and supportive. And so I became pregnant. My husband's business partners, actually, one of the wives ran the local obstetric office. And she started threatening us because I chose to give birth at home with that midwife. But I held fast to what I wanted, and I gave birth to my own baby in a state that was highly illegal, in a state where my own midwife was arrested and prosecuted as a felon not long after my daughter was born. And I took over her practice. And so I organically came into midwifery just because of the empowerment piece. And so we moved to New Hampshire, and I once again found myself pregnant. And so I ended up having a home birth that we didn't have a provider for, not because I didn't want one, but because she couldn't get to me in a weather-related incident. And I remember thinking at that moment in time, I really wanted my provider to be with me and to have options, and there weren't a whole lot of options. And in 2002, we had a family in the community that lived in a tow-behind Airstream trailer that wanted to have a home birth and didn't have a home. And so I offered them up my space. You know, I had an apartment off the back of my house, and they came and they gave birth on Thanksgiving Day. And the next day down at the market, somebody cornered me and said, you know, are you the person that had somebody have a baby at your house? You know, we would like to come and do that too. And I realized that there was this need in the community. So it got me thinking, what is different? Why do people want to choose an out-of-hospital setting but not a house? And so I started interviewing some other people in New England about what a birth center really was. And I called the state, how do I make this place a birth center? And so my little home became a little cottage, which is where the Birth Cottage name came from. And 3 years later, I completely outgrew the space, and we find ourselves in Milford and then expanding into Salem. And, you know, we've been providing this service for the families of New Hampshire now for 20 years.